Welcome to the STR Data Lab.
Hello and welcome to the STR Data Lab. I'm Jamie Lane, Chief Economist at AirDNA, and I'm joined today by Justin Ford, the Director of Short-Term Rental Safety and Certifications Program at Breezeway. Justin, welcome to the show.
Hey, welcome. I appreciate being here today. That's a mouthful, isn't it? I remember 6 years ago, my boss going, "You want that to be your title?"
Actually, I think every job I've had for like the past 10 years, my boss has been like, can you just pick a title and tell me what you want? Because like I have no idea what you do. So is that is
That's
that a
what hap
similar?
that's what happened with my boss, Jeremy Gall, when I did that. And of course, like a year or 2 ago, I asked him if I could change it. He said he'd get back to me. He still hasn't. So
Well, maybe that's a great sort of intro question of like, what do you actually do at Breezeway? Because like I've had Jeremy on the show. I talked about Breezeway and what it is, but maybe just a brief an overview for those that haven't heard of Breezeway, and what is your role there?
yeah, so Breezeway is a property care and operations platform. It's a software that helps people manage the back of the house.
Mhm.
It's really direct, straightforward. You get the booking through Verbo, Airbnb, your direct booking site. If you have a property management company, somehow the booking comes in. Now, what do we do with it? Well, we got to assign a task to a cleaner. We've got to assign a task to the guy who's going to fix the pool heater. We got to get somebody out here to address the filters. And I fell into the niche with safety because, wait a minute, these properties need to be safe. And so I run our safety program, which supports the industry in a mission to basically elevate professionalism, and safety, we think, is the leading part of that.
That's amazing. I've always sort of seen you from afar. It's like people always ask me like, "You're a data guy, like you talk about data, you don't actually talk about AirDNA that much." And it's like, "Oh yeah, like talk about data," and it's like, "Oh, you sort of get the sense that AirDNA has data and like you should probably come to us." I get the sense that that's kind of the same with you of like you're not talking about Breezeway every day, you're talking about safety. And then sort of comes out of it like maybe you should use Breezeway. Like what's the connection there between safety and Breezeway?
Yeah, this actually three, it's complex. There's 3 or 4 components to it. First and foremost, we have an ultimate goal to have people using our platform to do safety inspections that will validate that they're caring for their property. So if you're using Breezeway to do a inspection, you can basically prove that you've done these safety inspections and that you're taking care of things the way you should. So that's the primary goal. Secondary is, as I kind of mentioned before, elevating standards. Breezeway wants to be that direct source that says, "Hey, we care about this industry, and if you want to be professional, then you need to use our software, and we have safety checklists in here that'll help you do that." Then on the community side, it's been very interesting. It's kind of split 2 ways. It's one, getting that message out and, all the conferences, VR Nation, VRMA, all the different regional things. And then that's gone global now. I've been down with Astra in Australia, South Africa, New Zealand, all over. So just kind of getting those global standards in place. And then the fourth piece that not a lot of people know is we do a lot with government. I go present a lot to NFPA conferences, National Fire Protection Association, code enforcement, and we're working to try and make it easier for government to facilitate inspections. Because let's face it, as you know, there's well over 1 million vacation rentals in the world. In fact, I think there's over a couple million in the world. And how the heck are we going to inspect all these to make sure they're safe? So we're doing a lot of government support there too.
I'll give you a new number, over 10 million.
Yeah,
That's
over
crazy.
2 million.
Yeah,
Exactly. It's a lot.
yeah. So, how did you become this safety expert? Like, and what's your sort of background? Like, how are you coming up with all this stuff of like, are you like, I can't imagine there's like a safety vacation rental school.
No, no, there isn't. And it's funny, I had this discussion with somebody the other day because they're trying to add expert to their title, and they're like, "So do I just do that?" And I'm like, "No, I don't think you do. I think I waited till somebody called me it." I don't think we are allowed to call ourselves experts until somebody does, and who knows? I could have been just, doing a TV interview and someone said they're an expert. Oh, no, I'm an expert now. Someone has up to my title. I feel like I've got the background that supports it. I served in the U.S. Coast Guard for 4 years doing boating safety, so I know about safety and a focus on safety, not, what's a boat have to do with the house? Same thing when you're doing safety inspections on ships. It's very important there's certain things in place because things can happen. I was a firefighter for 15 years, so I saw what happens. Hey, wait a minute. You're telling me if you have a coiled extension cord that turns into a heater when you run too much electricity to it, it'll burn a house down? Okay, I got to pay attention to that. And then I co-founded and started what became the largest vacation rental company in the Northeast. Had that for about 15 years and saw everything. Had some bad safety incidents that happened, and started putting things together and realized, holy smokes, no one's addressing this. And so I did a bunch of research, and I don't think anybody else had. So once I put that together, I had a really nice mud pie of stats and information, and nobody else did. So I guess I get to own that.
Well, I definitely want to get into some of the learnings that you sort of have sort of developed and sort of the top takeaways for a lot of the hosts out there, because a lot of our listeners aren't, I would call them, they're not professional property managers. They're people that maybe have 1 to 5 listings. They've sort of developing their portfolio. Most of them are owner operators. So they don't have a professional management company that sort of does it, that can sort of give them the safety standards. So I feel like, and some of your learnings are going to be super helpful for people. But I wanted to start with, I was just out in LA for Airbnb's product release, and it was super cool to get out there, sort of meet the leadership team, and sort of get a sense of what they're doing and what they're planning. But this is a big change for, I think, what a lot of people sort of thought they were signing up for with and renting their home out on Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com. What did you sort of hear, and what are your sort of maybe initial takes on Airbnb getting into services and making these services really bookable and available to happen at short-term rentals around the world?
Yeah, I did a deep dive into this. I guess what was it, 2 years ago? Brian Chesky was his family left, and he had some sort of 3-day Buddha powwow in his apartment and came up with all these ideas, and he's rolled it out. And people who worked for him have said, "Hey, we're going to do this." It's kind of frustrating from my angle, first and foremost, because the first thing I looked at is, wow, now they're going to finally start offering, safety inspection services, and that's not there. Um, they're going to offer massage experiences. So I was like, okay, so you could get a massage in your Airbnb while there's a smoke alarm dangling with no battery over the top of you. And I guess that'll be relaxing. I'm really concerned. We haven't seen the fine print on this. There's gonna be a lot of fine print because now all of a sudden I've been advocating for years, like, don't give out bikes, don't give out your kayaks, don't offer golf carts. Let somebody else do that that's taking on that liability risk. When I was a professional manager, our insurance company, and this is like 10 years ago, our insurance company wouldn't even let us refer a babysitter out of the potential risk that something happened while that babysitter was there. So America hasn't become less litigious in the past 10 years. It's become more litigious. So I'm really interested to see where things are going to be drawn, where the line's going to be that's going to protect these hosts and operators from, you know, is there going to be background checks on the masseuse, all these different people coming in? This is a big thing to swallow, and I'm waiting for more information.
Yeah. So, and maybe that's part of the point of, and talking with the team, and it seems like the big effort so far has been around building an internal team at Airbnb to vet all these service providers, because they are going to make them go through a process of like showing their certification, showing their insurance, showing that they are a real service provider, not just random Joe off the street that says he's a masseuse and that wants to come hang out at a bachelorette party and give everyone a massage. So, I guess I hope that and the effort that they're putting into this vetting will sort of be able to give people the peace of mind. But and if you were a host today, would you be sort of allowing these services to go on in your home, or do you think or you think like, yeah, like, and this is a new service. It is at least it's not you offering these things, it's Airbnb offering it, and they're doing the vetting, and these service providers are taking on that risk of coming into your house, and it does add that sort of layer of protection.
Yeah, look, I want to be supportive of this, and I am supportive of it. And I know that Airbnb's got the money to hire the right legal team and put things in place to do that. So I think it's a great idea. I like seeing things move forward. But before, as a host, I want to do this, I just want to make sure things have been checked and cleared and everything's going to go okay. And I don't want to pay for a lawyer to check it. I want to feel confident without that. So, I don't want to be the test guy. I don't want to be the first one that has, a masseuse that comes into to my vacation rental and accidentally, the hand goes into the wrong place real quick, and then suddenly I'm getting a bad review on my I want to find out how that process is going to work first.
Yep. So, and that's good sort of advice of like, let's see how it goes. Let's see how they roll it out. Let's see how sort of the vetting process is going, and then and maybe it does sort of really open up. And what I'm excited about is it opens up short-term rentals to more compete with hotels of if someone does want this additional level of service, and a lot of times it wasn't an option to easily sort of get these things in addition. And it is if someone wants to get a massage and wants to have that happening on property, like, okay, there's a resort hotel down the street, you should stay there. Or if you wanted to get a professional meal sort of cooked for you, like you got to do it at the resort where you can go down to the restaurant and like eat it there. So now that and this potentially does open up for a certain portion of the population where they didn't see short-term rentals as an option, that it may and sort of open it up to them.
Well, so here's where I like it, and here's where I'm still concerned. Where I like it, there was a survey, and I know you like data. There was a survey in 2021 that was done where they said to people who travel a lot, what do you prefer in your accommodations? And when they zeroed in on the people who like to stay in hotels and resorts, 62% of those people say they wouldn't stay in a vacation rental because they're concerned about safety. So imagine all those people that are staying in resorts that want all those resort-like features that now may go, "Hey, wait a minute. Now I can have those type of experiences at an Airbnb. That's great." But we're still not addressing their biggest concern, which is, am I going to be safe there? In a resort, I know I've got, cameras, we in the hallways, we've got all these different things that are in place, annual fire inspections. So my con side of it is Airbnb still isn't solving the problem that they do have, and they have a safety issue. And they're kind of sidestepping that. So that's where I'm a little concerned.
That makes sense. So let's maybe jump back over then to the traditional sort of safety questions sitting around say short-term rentals, and maybe just a initial question around like when you sort of walk into a vacation home, which I know you go into a lot.
Yeah.
Uh,
I say this is one thing I tout. No one's challenged me on this one yet. I think I've probably been in more vacation rentals than any person in the world. I go in them all the time. I'm on the road constantly and all over the world, so I go into a lot of them.
so what are the most common safety issues you typically see that hosts or professional managers are overlooking?
Yeah, we got lots of data and stats around it, and the number one is slips, trips, and falls. And I think people are often driven to fire as being a big issue, fire, carbon monoxide type issues. And certainly they are, those exist. But we know from insurance claims that they're less than 5% of the claims that insurance companies get are fire. And it's the big ones are, hey, guests are arriving, and within an hour or two, they're slipping and falling, tripping, falling down stairs, poor lighting, difficulty getting from their car into the property, pavers that are uneven in the driveway. That's the stuff that's really coming in and getting people. And I think that surprises people a lot.
Yeah. So, and outside of getting you to show up at their property, and sort of pointing out all the issues, like what is the sort of biggest tips on sort of finding all the potential, like maybe obvious safety issues at your property?
Get a friend, get a family member, and have them go to your property without you there at night with a suitcase, and have them get out of their car and go into your property and give them, a text message that has the code and the key location, just like you would a guest. You're going to be shocked. And every single time I do this with somebody, they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I'm like, exactly. These guests are tired. They've driven, they've flown, and now they're getting out and they're navigating into your house for the very first time without you there going, watch out for that and be careful of this. And my husband's going to fix that. My wife just gardened right there and we're going to trim that back without any of that. And they're dragging suitcases and kids are yelling behind them and they're trying to get inside. If you haven't experienced that at your own property yet, then you are way, way behind. You got to do that first.
No, uh that's a really uh great way to sort of find it. And I think, like, with a lot of the coaches out there, common sort of advice is like stay on your property and, yeah, stay in every room and get a sense of like what could be wrong. But it sounds like the next level of advice is you've got to have someone stay in the property that's not you, that's not like set it all up and know all of like little quirks about the house. Know like, oh yeah, don't step here, or don't, I'm, you got to go around the house to do this. Like, have someone show up that's never been there and with an eye of like, what are people going to miss? What are the sort of trip safety hazards when it's dark? Blindfold them, spin them around, and then have them figure out where to go.
Yeah, I love that you said that because I hear there's so many misnomers, myths, and crazy things that are out there. Go stay in your own home. Well, you go stay in your own home. You're familiar, in each bedroom with what's going on. You've got to have somebody else do it. You've got to not just sleep in the bedroom. You've got to wake up at 2 in the morning in the darkness and see if you can actually open the windows and escape in the interest that a fire happened. You've got to actually have someone test the smoke alarm from down in the kitchen and make sure you're still hearing 85 decibels up in your bedroom, and you can download a free decibel app on your phone. So there's things you've got to do to make sure your house is meeting what those basic standards are that the manufacturer's intended for the windows, for the smoke alarms, the carbon monoxide alarm, all that stuff. And it's not hard to do that.
Yeah. So, as many listeners have heard me say, like, I came into short-term rentals from the hotel industry. And traditional hotels, like, they go through fire inspections. There's fire safety. Like, you talk to a hotel owner on what they don't like about short-term rental industry in general, is like, they're like, we have to go through all these hoops to make sure that our property is safe for guests. And then all these vacation rental owners can come in, buy any given home, throw it up on Airbnb, and start accepting guests, and they don't have to do any of this.
Yeah.
And I do think it is a valid concern, and I think it comes from maybe a different angle that they're coming from, but it is kind of crazy that you can buy any home, do no sort of an outside sort of safety inspection, start housing guests the next day, and who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. And for people who don't know this, just real quick, 1990, the Federal Hotel Safety Act came out. President Bush signed the bill, the first President Bush, because there had been so many fire deaths and so many deaths in hotels, and the government said we've had enough. And so they put this Safety Act in, and every hotel, motel, and inn in the United States is under this United States federal law that they have to do that. Well, short-term rentals weren't big then. They existed, but they weren't big, so they didn't get in the act. And in fact, one little side thing of that that still impacts our industry today and probably affects you, you might know the numbers better than me, but I'm told it's around $4 billion, is that any US government money can't be spent on an Airbnb. So government employees can't stay because the Federal Hotel Motel Safety Act said they can only stay in properties that have been through these safety inspections. So you've got four, maid of honor, bridesmaids staying in your house instead of four DOT guys that are here to inspect the highway. Personally, I'd rather have the four DOT guys that are going to be low impact. And so that's something that really kind of puts in perspective where we are. We're still the Wild West here. And residential homes, less than 2% of them in our industry are actually inspected for safety.
So would you support sort of a federal type law that would require safety inspections for vacation rentals?
Yes, but I wanna make sure I support the answer for that. Hosts and managers, operators actually want this. You guys wanna have this regulation in place, but there's gonna be a balance with it. I don't support that we need to have sprinkler systems retrofitted. I think if we're building a property and we know that it's gonna be for a short-term rental, yes. PEX tubing now, fire sprinkler costs have come way, way down. It's not unheard of on new construction. You should. If you're building a new house, just put the fire sprinkler system in. It's not much, but we shouldn't have to retrofit. We have good alarm systems out there now that we can use. And if we put those in place, we're going to get more business. We're going to reassure the public that our properties are safe. So I don't see it as a bad thing to have those regulations in place. And if you look, people say who might be going, wait a minute, this guy's off his rocker. We look at Palm Springs, California. They were the first city to really put strict regulations in 2015. And everybody said, that's it. They're done. $1,000 annual inspection, electrical inspections of pools, all this stuff. And here we are 10 years later. Palm Springs has more vacation rentals than it did in 2015, not less. And they've had way less incidents than they had before. So it does work, and we have proof of it.
No, that's amazing. And then do you think it'll ever happen?
I think I've actually talked to two different US senators and several congressmen on this. The political environment in the US makes it very difficult for that to happen. So it's not going to happen through a federal law. I believe it's going to happen at the state level through code. And I'm on several committees. I mentioned earlier, the fourth thing I do is government. I'm off and on with some of the community liaisons for Airbnb and Verbo, in with these meetings with fire chiefs and NFPA, ICC, which is International Code Council. They're going to put into code and define a short-term rental. Right now it's not. And every year that we're getting closer and closer to that happening, and then your state legislature will adopt the next year's version of code. And suddenly overnight, you're going to have this definition of short-term rental and requirements. So that's the way it's going to happen, is at the state level, I think.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And we'll have 30 different state versions, and then maybe eventually there's enough sort of groundswell to get a federal version to align all the different regulations into a national thing. So the other sort of common question I hear out there on when people are sort of discussing safety is, and that's what I have insurance for. So like, why do I need to care about insurance or care about safety if I'm insured against anything happening in my property?
Yeah.
What is your sort of response on that?
I've heard that question so many times, and it's bothered me. A year or two ago, I sat down and I said, there's got to be something I can correlate this to try and help people understand better. And I was pulled over myself by a police officer for not wearing a seatbelt. Now he just couldn't see it. And I live in a state where it's mandatory you wear a seatbelt. So I was wearing it, but I was pulled over because it didn't look like I was. And it dawned on me. I'm like, wait a minute. I got to think about this. This makes sense. So I did some research and found out that all 50 states have seatbelt laws now, but some states have a poor adoption, and Ohio is one of them. Ohio only has an 80% adoption rate, and they've surveyed people and said, why aren't the other 20% doing it? And a lot of them said, because I have insurance or because I have an airbag. So I correlate that over to a lot of people who think they have insurance and that they've got coverage. They think that insurance is that airbag. I'm not wearing a seatbelt, but if something happens, I'm going to be okay. And that's not true. We know that. I was a firefighter at car accidents for 15 years. And so I think a lot of people misunderstand that if you're negligent, they don't have your back. I don't do expert witness work, but I get calls a lot from property owners that are actually, and you can look this up, there are people who are suing their insurance company for not covering them in a safety incident. And then the insurance company's like, well, wait a minute. We didn't know you didn't have it. You removed the handrail on your stairs, or we didn't know that you haven't, changed the batteries in your smoke alarms. We're not covering that. That's negligence.
Yeah. For my short-term rental, I use proper insurance. And I loved that they went through all my photos. They went through all the photos both on the house listing, then all the Airbnb and Vrbo photos, and they did what I thought was a pretty detailed analysis of all the potential safety hazards, and then made me take extra photos to show where things were and things that I didn't even think about that they were worried about. Like, it wasn't an inspection, obviously, but and they were at least got me thinking about safety at my property where I hadn't been, having just bought it and was sort of getting it set up.
Proper's amazing. We've partnered with them for the past 6 years now. They actually give the largest discount that you get at Proper Insurance is if you've done my safety course online. It's up to 10%. So that says a lot. And they don't allow me to publicly release figures, but I will tell you they're very, very small. The number of incidents that they've had if people have done, my safety inspections and done what I've said. So that's why they give the biggest discount on that. And I think, when I've gone in and see what they're doing, I often we're talking a lot about e-batteries right now and different things. They haven't been necessarily evaluating that, but we talk about that quite a bit recently based on the number of e-battery fires. So they're on top of trying to make sure that hosts and operators aren't going to have incidents. And it's not because they don't want to pay out. It's just we shouldn't have them.
Yeah. I asked you about sort of the common safety issues you come across, and you sort of mentioned those. What are the sort of uncommon, more things that you just wouldn't think about, or if your friend's coming in at dark, they're not going to see and I think e-batteries maybe go into that of something that has become more and more an issue as those have become more prevalent. But what are the things that maybe you wouldn't think about and someone else wouldn't think about either that could be a major safety hazard?
The two that I think always surprise people the most are furniture tip overs and poison control. The Washington Post did an article a few years ago. I don't know if the information's still accurate, but a couple of years ago it was, so I think it's still up there. The number one phone call placed from an Airbnb was to poison control, not for a Wi-Fi password, not for more towels. And we do see a lot of those incidents. Kids that are coming into properties are not familiar with things, and there's a lot deeper dive into this. Just quick disclosure, this is not a call for you to put child safety features in your property. Don't do that. Actually, that's the worst thing you can do. But that's something the parents should do. The other is the furniture tip overs. In 2023, a federal act came into play because of so many furniture tip overs, lawsuits against IKEA, Wayfair. Anybody here who's gotten a furniture delivery from IKEA or Wayfair lately knows you get multiple text messages after that delivery pointing out that red cord in the box connects it to the safety hardware. You've got to secure it to the wall. I had a call yesterday about a furniture tip over in Florida. It's the number one pediatric injury for children under 5. And so many people put their houses together so quick to get it online and listed, and they don't think about, oh my gosh, I should have secured that dresser. I never realized that the TV, when it falls, weighs, puts a force out of 27,000 pounds, that 50-pound TV. So, those are the big ones that always surprise people, I think.
Yeah. I'll admit in my personal house, I had never used those sort of tip over things
Yeah.
because I was like, like it's not and for my kids, like they don't climb on stuff and like, but I, for the first time, used all the sort of tip over stuffs when I was setting up my short term rental because like, no idea what people are going to be doing at this house. And like, um, and now that I say it, maybe I should put it on my home stuff as well. Uh,
That's
saying it out
one of the
loud.
ones where the insurance companies definitely will come out and go, "Wait a minute, you had a furniture tip over, you didn't secure it? Yeah, we're not covering that."
Yeah. So that is one of those risks that is out there that is, and you've got to be covering yourself. You can't rely on insurance to cover it if you're willfully like you set up this furniture yourself and they gave you something to secure it to the wall and you didn't do it, like that is active negligence.
There are a lot of manufacturers out there of products that are seen regularly in Airbnbs that people don't understand. They've changed some of the warnings. Solo stoves, an example. I see those at Airbnbs all the time. But if you read the instruction and warning manual for a solo stove, it says it's not for commercial use. And since Airbnbs and vacation rentals have really elevated, a lot of manufacturers have been sued over incidents that have happened and they've added that. And a lot of hosts and operators don't realize that. The reason it says it's not for commercial use is because someone at your Airbnb should not be using a solo stove. It's a portable stove. It can create issues. So you've got to follow what your manufacturer instructions are, or you're taking the risks if somebody does something and hasn't had action, to read those instructions.
Yeah. That was one thing too, like, I got a first complaint from a guest was like, "Why don't you have a charcoal grill?" And I was like, "'Cause I don't trust you guys with a charcoal grill on my patio." Like, I've got a gas grill for you. I've got it in a safe spot, and, like, that's all that I sort of can trust a guest with without me being there to know how you're gonna use that charcoal, where you're gonna put the grill, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
Like,
it goes into what you were saying before about hotels and safety. They've taught us a lot of lessons. You don't see furniture tip overs in hotels. You don't walk into a bathroom and see bath mats on the floor because those are trip hazards. I learned that lesson a long time ago. And you don't see grills that are just loose. They're on those posts like at a state park. They're mindless. The idea is you put your charcoal bag on there, and I'm starting to see that at a lot more vacation rentals. Smoky Mountains, actually, you're seeing that because of all the fires they've had up there. So these are these lessons that have already been shown to us. We just have to take them and go with them.
yeah. Well, and if there was sort of one thing that you wanted and someone to sort of take away of like, if they wanted to start making their property safer, like what would be that for sort of first step for them?
Well, there's a couple things, and we didn't say this at the beginning, and we're getting a little deep here, so I want to be careful to just put a pause. I love this industry. My family owns a short-term rental. I don't want to scare anybody out of doing this. This is just stuff you're supposed to do, and as you know, everybody wants to hop into this industry because it's fun, and you get to decorate the house, and you get to do these cool things, and you're going to make money, and but you got to remember, just because there aren't regulations doesn't mean you have to do this stuff. So, you can't skip this stuff. You got to jump in, and when you do, recognize that this is an investment opportunity now. Safety is. Most people who buy a property to offer as an Airbnb are going to own that for several years. They're looking at appreciation and the value of the home. They're going to sell it later, and in the meantime, they're making some income. These houses are going to be more valuable as safety regulations come in place and you have them there. So investing in safety when you go to sell your house, oh yeah, no, we already have all these things in place. We have the right egress windows. We've done the right thing with the grill. Our deck has been updated and is stronger. So making your property safe should be something that you look at as an investment, not just as protecting your guests.
Hmm. No, that's great. Um, so we are coming up on time. Um, and maybe the sort of last question and maybe and using safety as a selling point. So you said that, and that stat around over 60% of potential guests like don't want to stay in short-term rentals because of safety hazards. Like it seems like there's amazing opportunity to flip that, of offering your property as super safe and maybe convince someone that wouldn't have otherwise stayed in a short-term rental that they are going to be safe in your property. So how do you see safety as really an opportunity?
Yeah, I never intended or saw that initially, and it was amazing when it came around. It started on the professional side first. There was a company in North Carolina that started, they hired a social media marketing person, and she started inserting safety into their marketing messages, and they directly attributed it to a 9-point lift in bookings. They started having guests call and say, "Hey, we noticed that you just did a social media piece on that you've just checked and changed all your smoke alarms. We like that. We want to come stay with you." And they got bookings from it. Then it moved over into the host side. There's a host, any of your listeners can Google this. If you just Google safe Airbnb, organically, one of the top searches that comes up in the world is this Airbnb in Waterbury, Vermont. And she's getting all kinds of bookings because she's marketed her property as a safe property, and organically, it shoved her right to the top of listings. And I've personally been there because I want to say, I want to see how safe this is. And it is, it's a great property. You can't call something perfectly safe all the time, but she has a strong commitment and has done a good job. So think about that. You could show up organically near the top, and there are a lot of people. When you do these keyword searches, you'll see people are searching for that. They care about it. Their family is important to them. They want to make sure they're in a place that's okay to be. So don't be afraid to showcase it. Don't like stick it in their face, but you can have it a couple lines down that, hey, by the way, we updated all our smoke alarms this year, and you can feel very safe staying in our property because we've got great egress and we're close to a fire department. Whatever. You can market that.
No, that's great. So, Justin, I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I feel like I've learned a lot. If people want to find and more about and sort of the information you talked about, your online course, more about and how to make your property safe and find you, like how do they do that?
Yeah, really easy. If you go to the Breezeway website, breezeway.io, our safety program's listed under the resources tab. I'm available at safety@breezeway.io. That's my email address. And then follow me on Instagram, under short-term rental safety. We post safety tips every Tuesday, and I'm always sharing things. U.S. Consumer Product Safety Council recalls for your property that might affect them, different updates, different things going on. And I do that on LinkedIn and Facebook as well under short-term rental safety.
No, I love those videos. They're you make safety fun.
I try to, and I try and make it interesting. And there's a reward to it. The coolest thing I get to do, Jamie, is I get to hear calls from people that say they did something that I recommended, and it averted a fire, it averted a pool drowning, and I consider myself probably one of the luckiest people in our industry because not only are we trying to make sure people have great vacations and they go home only with great memories, but I get to help save some lives and prevent those as well, and that feels really good.
Well, and kudos to you for sort of jumping into this role. I'm sure it's one that no one asked you to do, and also kudos to Breezeway for supporting it, and continue to push it. Like it's great that we have you in the industry and that you're able to do what you do.
Thanks.
Well, we'll see you around. Thanks, Justin.